Why are we so fearful? Why do we grow afraid so quickly? I want to take us to Mark chapter 4, verse 40. And in this chapter, Jesus and the disciples get on a ship, and Jesus said, we're going to go to the other side. Well, Jesus goes down in the bottom of the ship and goes to sleep, and a storm rises up, and the disciples become very fearful because the water is filling the ship, and they think we're all going to die, and they become very afraid, and they wonder why Jesus isn't doing something, and they go wake him up, and they're like, don't you care that we're about to die? And Jesus looks at them in verse 40, Jesus looks at them and he said unto them, why are ye so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? Sometimes we feel like Jesus is not aware of our circumstances. Sometimes in our mind, in our heart, we just feel like Jesus doesn't care. Like he was asleep in the bottom of this ship. That's the situation that the disciples were in. They said in verse 38, Master, carest thou not that we perish? Now Jesus was on board this ship with them. They had a very close relationship with Jesus. Jesus spoke to the crowds in parables, but not to the disciples when they were in private. He didn't speak in parables, but he spoke plainly. They had a very close relationship with Jesus. They knew Jesus was the Christ. They knew him. He was on the ship with them. Why was it that they thought they were going to die? They knew that Jesus was on board with them. I think it's because they started to focus on the storm. And the storm in their mind became bigger than God, became bigger than Jesus, who was on the ship with them. The thing that stands out to me is that Jesus asked them a question. He said, why are you so fearful? Why is it that you're so fearful? Where is your faith? See, Jesus knew that they should not be afraid if they focused on the fact that Jesus was on the ship with them, and he said, we're going to go to the other side. But see, they weren't focused on that. They were focused on the storm. They were focused on the water filling the ship. This was not a light storm. It said the water beat against the ship and it was full. The ship was full of water. What happens when a ship gets full of water? It sinks. So if they were looking at the circumstances, the storm, the raging waves, the water filling the ship, they had every right to be afraid. But if they were focused on Jesus, which would be keeping their faith in Jesus, they wouldn't have any fear because they know that Jesus was going to make it to the other side. Did they believe that the ship was going to sink and kill Jesus? No, but they didn't think about that because they were focused on the storm. They were focused on the problem, on the noise that Satan was making. See, in verse 35, Jesus was with them. He had already said, let us pass over to the other side. So Jesus knew what they were going to do. They were going to pass over to the other side. Jesus got up and he rebuked the storm. He said, peace, be still. And then the disciples were all amazed. They were like, what manner of man is this that even the winds and the waves obey him? They were astounded. So that goes to prove that you can know Jesus more and more and more. Just because you know Jesus don't mean you can't get to know Jesus, right? Because they were astounded. They realized even the waves obey him. You can stand on his word no matter what the circumstances look like. You know, when Jesus asked them, why is it you have no faith? I don't believe that he was expecting them to calm the storm. He wasn't expecting them to stand up on the bow of the ship and say, peace, be still. No, he was expecting them to have faith in what he had spoken. And what he had spoken was, let us go to the other side. The storm made it look like they weren't going to get to the other side. Doesn't that happen in our life? Isn't that what it looks like so many times? We believe God for something, and then circumstances happen, storms come, problems come, and we begin to doubt what we set out to do because we start to focus on the circumstances. It's hard to stand on the promises of God when our ship is full of water, when everything around us indicates failure, doom, worse ahead. We need to remember that Jesus is with us. His word is for us, and we need to have faith in His word. You may feel like God doesn't care because nothing has changed, because things have grown worse. But you need to stand firm on the promises of God. Focus on Him and take your eyes off of the storm. Because as long as you focus on the storm, as long as you focus on the problem, you're going to be filled with fear and doubt. That's what happens when you focus on the circumstances. You become filled with fear and doubt. So just hear Jesus speaking to you and saying, "Where is your faith? Why are you so afraid? Peace, be still." Jesus is with you through this storm. Don't focus on the waves or the water in the boat, because He said we're going to go to the other side. He said you're going to make it.